Hold on one second. Sean Michael Jordan here, and today we're going to talk about something that is often overlooked, yet quite possibly the most important part of getting stunning looking images. And that's lighting. Yeah, even more important than buying a new one of these. Every photographer and filmmaker will eventually hear something that sounds a little bit like this.
That's a really nice picture. What kind of camera do you use?
Thanks, I actually took these with my cell phone.
Oh, it must have a really nice camera.
I don't know if I'd say that. There's a stigma out there that in order to get good pictures, whether it's still pictures or motion pictures, that you must have a nice, expensive camera. After all, when we see someone who is taking great pictures or filming good stuff, the majority of the time they do have nice cameras. But this tends to be a bit of a misconstrued assumption, which has been taken upon at face value. You see, these pictures were taken on my Nexus 5. Which by today's standards is, well, pretty lackluster. But to most people, these look good. And these were taken on an older cell phone. Yes, I do use a Canon 80D for most of my pictures and videos, and yes, it takes better images. But that's not why these pictures look good to most people. That's not why this video looks so different. The misconception that photographers use nice cameras because they take nice photos has a lot of people either giving up on trying it themselves because of the perceived paywall that stands in front of them, or questioning themselves when they do drop the money on that expensive piece of gear, only to come to me saying, "Sean, I think there's something wrong with my camera. I took some photos at home and they just look all grainy, and I compared them to my photos I took at the park the other day with my phone and they look so much better. Did I buy the wrong camera?" I could take my 80D and lend it to an inexperienced budding photographer, and chances are the photos they take will look very similar, if not worse, than the ones they took on their cell phone. And it's happened. You see, this camera is much more complex than a cell phone. There's much more things that you need to take into consideration when using it, whereas the cell phone is pretty much just point and click. So if the camera gear isn't what makes your footage look cinematic, what is? Let me ask you a question. What is the purpose of light? To see what we're doing? Light creates everything that we see. Without light, we don't know what's in front of us. It's just black. Light gives everything its shape, its texture, its depth. Light lets us know that a sphere is round, if it's smooth or rough. Light builds everything that we see. When you change the light, you change what you see. Literally everything you're seeing is because of the light. And by changing the light, we change how it looks. The difference between your mom's photos and a photographer's photos isn't the camera they're using, it's their understanding of light. So, let's learn the basics of lighting, using only one light. The first thing you think about is, where do I want the light to be coming from in my image? There's three main ways to do it. Are you going to front light it, side light it, or backlight it? Yes, I know there's technically more to it than this, but remember, we're keeping it basic here. Front lighting is the most common type of lighting. The light source comes from somewhere in the front of the scene and creates a very even and unoffensive lighting type. It's the most common because we can see everything, and shadows are at a minimum, which means less wrinkles. This also creates a very flat, two-dimensional space because there are less shadows, which are what gives an object its three-dimensional shape. The light doesn't have to come from dead center as long as it's projecting from the front of the scene. Side lighting is where the light source comes directly from the side of the scene at a 90-degree angle. This is also called split lighting because it tends to split everything directly in half with shadows. This is a highly dramatic style that will really define the shapes and features of the scene. It's not used as commonly, as we tend to want more than half of the subject to be illuminated. Backlighting is where the light source comes from somewhere in the back half of the scene. It is very good at creating silhouettes and providing depth in the scene by separating your subject from the background. This is one of the big benefits of backlighting because you tend to get this halo of light that outlines your subject and defines its shape. This can also be called rim lighting or hair lighting. Although they are mutually exclusive styles, backlighting tends to create rim lighting. Like front lighting, backlighting does not have to come from dead center. To demonstrate why lighting is more important to an image than your camera, we're going to take the 80D and do a comparison test, starting with just filming everything in the room with the lights on. It's not necessarily pro grade, but it's no slouch either. Now, even throwing in some nifty camera moves and techniques like using depth of field and some basic camera maneuvers, something about this just doesn't feel all that cinematic. And here's why. Regular ceiling lights make everything look unspectacular because there's no thematic purpose. Its only purpose is to provide light to everything. This means everything in the room from every direction is front lit and provides no depth and little to no separation of our subject from the background and foreground objects. Everything is flat. There's no layers to the scene, front to back. It's unoffensive, which is okay because it's doing its intended job, which is to make sure that you can see well, not make everything dramatic. So that even with this usage of depth of field, the whole scene feels uninspired. So let's switch things up a bit without changing any of the camera settings, merely changing our lighting with the help of the sun through a window. The whole entire mood, atmosphere, and scene has a completely different look and feel from just one simple change: the light. The camera is the same, the settings are the same, and the shots are pretty much the same. But everything about how this looks is completely different and required no expensive upgrade in gear from what we were using previously. The footage is even shakier, but it doesn't matter because the lighting made things change so much for the better that no amount of stabilizers or gimbals could replace. So again, let's look at some more practical examples of basic lighting using the same light source to show you how you can change the look simply by your decision on how to use it. We'll turn our subject to show how the actor's positioning can affect the feel based on the light source with front lighting, side lighting, and backlighting. Lighting is the most important servant in the kingdom, and while story is still the king, lighting is his right-hand man. This is Sean Michael Jordan with Route 1 Reels, and I hope you learned something today. Please check out these links for support, and let me know what you'd like to see. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. Oh, God. I don't know what to say. Oh, did I leave the oven on?
Where? Pizza? I don't know.
I feel like these things are staring at me.
Meryl.
Ooh, they're having a sale on popcorn.